Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leanna, and today I'm going to be doing a smaller sort of discussion video, which I'm actually trying to film yesterday without any notes, and it went okay, but I wasn't entirely happy with the end result. And just due to the fact that I do have a little bit of cognitive difficulties, I think I'm just better off taking a few notes ahead of time, even if it's just a few, and kind of glancing down at them as I need to. So I'm going to redo it again today. And I have two things I want to talk about today. They're linked together, so that's why I kind of wanted to put them in the same video. And so we're going to start with topic number one, which is inspiration porn, which is kind of a newer term that's kind of come to light, and it sounds maybe a little bit weird because you're thinking like, porn, what are we going to be talking about, sex? But no, not really. It's nothing sexual in nature. And inspiration porn kind of talks about the issue of looking at disability through an inspirational lens. It's a fairly new term, and it's usually used when abled people and able-bodied people are sharing around sort of like a video or a story of a person with a disability. And they're usually just sharing it among their own community, not with disabled people, and looking at them as some sort of really amazing, inspiring, emotional journey. And it's usually only being shared solely due to the fact that the person is disabled, if you kind of catch my drift. And sometimes the video has been filmed and is being shared without the disabled person's consent, which is an entirely separate issue. It's also very, very bad. So you might actually be wondering, well, how do you know if something is inspiration porn? And a key factor in my eyes is to ask, would you be sharing this around? And would you be looking at this as inspirational if the person didn't have a disability? Usually the answer then becomes no. I'm only sharing this and I'm only finding this person inspiring because they are disabled, even though they're just living their everyday lives. And another example of this, also, you'll find that a lot of people living in larger bodies and fat bodies get asked a lot when someone comes up to you and say, "You're so brave for doing this." Do thin people get asked the same thing or get told that they're brave for simply existing in their body? And no, they don't. So like a fat person appearing on the cover of a swimsuit magazine in a bikini gets told that they're very, very brave. Would you tell a thin person this for wearing a bikini? No. So that's kind of a similar thing. And I myself, I remember growing up and being approached by many different people I didn't even know, or people I met very, very briefly, telling me, "You're such a brave kid, a strong kid, you're so inspirational." You know, I was just doing things that I had to do, and I was just trying to live my life. And I mean, these kinds of things can sound nice depending on who they're coming from and how they're said. They can also sound very, very demeaning. They can come across as very, very sympathetic and boo-hoo, poor you. And that's also in the same vein as how these videos and stories of disabled people are being shared among able people. Not so much to empower the disabled individual, which I think the abled person is trying to do, or they think they're trying to do. It's not empowering. When it comes back to the disabled person, that this is what has been happening, that they've been held up as some sort of example of inspiration and they're being shared around as some sort of spectacle, they feel quite bad generally. And it's more so to empower the able-bodied person in the end. And sharing these stories of disabled people often comes with a kind of a cruel asterisk and an afterthought of, well, here's what this person has achieved in their life, so what's your excuse? Which kind of leads into our second topic of discussion, which is called bootstrap theory. It's also referred to as bootstrapping, depending on who you talk to. And You might have heard the expression, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's what this means. That's what this is. If you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you can do anything. Anything is achievable. Anything is possible. Very, very simple. Except not really. This theory completely ignores the very real systemic issues and societal barriers that different marginalized groups, all marginalized groups, come across in daily life. So systemic racism, systemic ableism, systemic sexism, systemic homophobia and transphobia, etc. So then what happens in particular is one individual from that marginalized community is held up as an example of the pinnacle of success for that community. Then the rest of the community, well, if you're not achieving this, then you're a failure. What do you have going on in your life? Why can't you do this? And you see this a lot, or I see this a lot in particular with white people holding up the Obamas and Oprah as examples of Black success. And before I go any further, it's not to say Black people cannot be successful. People from any community cannot be successful. They can. But this is always done in a very tokenizing and dehumanizing way. And a way to say, kind of like, well, if these people made it this far, then obviously there's no issue of racism. Because they could do it. Despite the fact that Barack Obama was constantly being labeled a terrorist and his citizenship was always under question just because of the color of his skin and his name, and Michelle Obama constantly had pictures circulating racistly comparing her to different types of animals. So to say that racism doesn't exist just because a Black man could become the president is just wrong. The point being that if one person hasn't achieved that particular level of success, it is somehow their own fault and not the fault of the barriers around them. Similarly, then, when someone of another marginalized group, be they disabled or LGBTQIA+, achieves a very high level of success that they almost become like a spokesperson for the community, which again is very tokenizing, then everybody else in that community is seen as a failure if they don't make it up here. This is despite the fact, of course, that people in marginalized communities were not monolithic. We do not have all the same upbringing. We do not have the same experiences. We do not live in the same environments. We do not have the same type of access as each other. And even if we achieved some level of success in our life, which I'd like to think a lot of us do at some point, if it's not up here, it's not deemed successful at all. So how does this tie into inspiration porn? When videos and stories of, for example, disabled people, though I think this could kind of go for other marginalized people as well, but disabled people are shared, many of these are done so with text that amplifies the idea that if this person can do it, so can you. But as we've discussed, this isn't always the case depending on a number of huge factors. And of course, this isn't to say that you shouldn't be encouraging people and that people shouldn't be trying. It's to say that at the end of the day, after you've tried your very, very best and you haven't made it here, it's your fault. You just didn't try hard enough. That's what it always comes back to, and there's the harm. So that's how these two theories connect to each other, kind of connecting the dots a little bit. I didn't want to make this a super long video, although of course I could have, but I feel like you can kind of touch on both and connect the two without making it a 30-minute long video. So I hope that I kind of explained this well enough and opened up enough of a discussion that we can keep it going in the comments. I would really like to hear from other people on this. So if you'd like to see more discussion videos, I always have those linked in the description, related videos. And if you'd like to subscribe, there's also a little button down below where you can do so. I hope that all of you are staying very safe and very well, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye, everyone.